There we go. And I am going to introduce our speaker for today. We're really excited to welcome Ross Hebert from On This Spot. On This Spot is a Canadian owned and operated app developer with the purpose of changing how people interact with history. Their digital walking tours combine interactive then and now photography with engaging historical storytelling, allowing users to experience history in a whole new way. And with that, I will let Ross take it away.
There we go. Hello, everyone. Thank you for, thanks for your interest in what we're having and tuning in to have a look at, take a closer look at On the Spot, what we do, how we do it, and what we do for museums. I put together a presentation here to basically kind of introduce you to who we are and talk about online technologies and how to appeal to younger audiences, appeal to Gen Z, appeal to millennials, and some of the things that we are doing in order to make that happen. And even a little bit about how our app came into play and some of the main things that we use to kind of draw and attract and create attention. So yeah, thanks for coming in. And if there's any questions, please feel free to, kind of ask away. I'll get to those, or I'll reach out to you after and answer any questions that you may have. But basically, I'll start with what is On This Spot. On This Spot is an app. We're app developers that created an app, but we're history buffs that are also tech savvy. A bit of the origin story behind where we were created is we started out originally as a travel blog as an excuse to write off travel to all the places that we wanted to go. And, during our travels, we saw then and now opportunities where there were plaques in Nagasaki showing the devastation from World War II, and then the bombs were dropped. And those pictures were kind of right in front of areas, and they rebuilt the area, they rebuilt the buildings, they modified things, they changed it up, and that kind of gave us the idea for doing a then and now, like kind of combining them and then putting them together. And then, further on, we went into Juno Beach, where Andrew was sitting there looking for content about, like his idea is he wanted to read first-person stories about the beach and about the battles and about the things that were experienced there while he was there. But he wasn't able to find anything. Most of the first-person accounts and letters and stuff you would have to dig up and look for. There wasn't a kind of a collective resource like what we have. So upon returning to Canada, we created this in our own backyard, essentially in Vancouver, starting with, and have expanded across Canada into many other cities, and even now coming soon into the Maritimes, because we've discovered that there, a lot of the challenges that are facing many museums and communities is, the resources to create such things, and where do you even start with putting things online? And passing the baton of historical literacy on to us, and kind of taking that and encouraging and inspiring other people as well. So our goals were to create, as it says, scholarly yet engaging walking tours, written in a format that's designed for the end user, for tourists, for people to learn about their history, for grade 2 kids to learn about their community. And then as kids grow up throughout school, they'll start to learn about their province, their capital city, other areas, their other communities, Métis communities, First Nations communities, Ukrainian communities, all these different lovely communities that exist across Canada, to be able to tell them and put them all together in one resource, which is our app. And as a result of that, so that's kind of our vision and our vision and mission is essentially to be the future of history and putting quality content in people's hands, and showing them the history that's all around them, as opposed to something that we keep in a library or in a museum kind of deal, right? So our vision is to kind of educate people, show them, to tell people that Canadian history is more important, more interesting and important than they realize. I've definitely observed that the more people who think Canadian history, it's directly proportional. People who think Canadian history is boring often know very little about it, right? Once you know more about Canadian history, it becomes less and less boring. So our vision and mission is to kind of compete with the billion-dollar industries for people's attention and to kind of inspire them as we're inspired. And the main focus for that is our self-guided walking tours, right? The walking tours that we create, as you can see, this is the list of the tours that we have in Vancouver. We can cover any range of subjects, right? So anything from, Japantown, the no longer existing Japantown in Canada that was tragically broken up during the World War II due to internment. And then the Chinatown and all the faces and the struggles that they faced here in Vancouver, and architecture in Vancouver, and talking about different buildings and sites and how they're created and the history of how these buildings come to be. We could even focus on like a street like Granville Street. And real estate has always been a hot topic in Vancouver for more than 100 years. So that was why we put that one in. And that one in as well, because we found a lot of content to be able to do that. And we want to do this in such a way that it's good for tourism, it's good for heritage promotional efforts, and it's all kind of on a unified platform. What makes this effective is that we have multiple cities on the same platform throughout and across Canada. So people who are looking at their own content in their own city, looking for something to do for a day or to travel through, or if they're driving across Canada, they can find all of these little different spots that they can stop at along the way and learn about some history, stretch their legs and kind of do something, come visit family. It's meant to be a multi-purpose tool, which is why BIAs, museums, the city, a lot of them are oftentimes involved with us. Most of the time, museums actually end up getting them to pay for it, which I'll talk about a little bit more in a bit. Now, the main lure to an attraction to what we do is our then and now photos. Our then and now photos with the sliding tool, as you can see here, enable people to look like what was then and what's there now. Like there's no, right on the spot and on the scene. And because it's built into the app, you can view it remotely, which is what encourages people to go out there as well. And this is our core competency. This is what taking those what happened after the inspiration hit us in Japan to create these. And these photos do a great job of grabbing people's curiosity and getting them wondering like, oh, wow, what was that? What are these guys doing here? What was mined here? And why don't they mine here anymore? And, it just gives them a tangible connection to the past. And we've noticed that it's highly effective at grabbing people's attention, especially millennials who are very tech savvy and like playing with the app and discovering different places and things to learn. So the photos are our main part, and then we accompany that with the writing tours and stuff like that as well, right? And as I mentioned, the platform itself, the nearby feature. Okay, so in addition to the walking tour, when we create a tour and we create content, not all spots fit into a tour. So as you can see, some of them are nearby, and this is the nearby option that right in the middle of that page. And what this is it spots and it points out locations all over the place that are also interesting, but don't necessarily fit into a tour. So this is where the discovery portion comes in. When people are walking around, we can create notifications that'll pop up and say, hey, did you know that this happened here on this spot? And then tell them a story. We can link them to a video. And really kind of the sky is the limit in terms of what we can do with virtual content. We can create an experience where they can kind of look like Google Street View. There's any number of different things that we can do with it. And that's why the nearby portion is another key component of what we're doing with discovery. And those tour spots or those additional spots can be linked together to a tour that we can tell a story later on. There's any number of things that we can do with the nearby feature. And this is the best part about being able to get people to kind of explore different areas. And, this is how and why and where, like Sault Ste. Marie, for example, the museum in Sault Ste. Marie was able to get the city, the BIA, and the Chamber of Commerce and Tourism to pay for it, because we can identify certain interesting spots and put location markers there that draw people to that area. And, so this is the kind of nutshell version of the nearby feature that's also critically important. And then on top of that, we get to the platform itself, right? our content, our platform is constantly improving, and it started out with our core competency, which is what I had talked about. Our core competency is taking good photos, writing good tours, and spreading out that information so that people can kind of go out and discover it. And the fact that we're a platform with multiple cities in multiple provinces in multiple countries, soon to be, we have repurposed those old blog posts into content in the app. The beauty of that is it enables people to discover. When there's one app for one city or even one province or a localized area, it's very difficult and tedious to kind of get that up and running. So with what we do, we're constantly backing it up. We're building our app, and we do everything on our own that you don't have to worry about. If we're creating and we get into a partnership where we create content, you'll never have to think about how to update the app or keeping it updated. All of the focus is on creating content and creating new stuff, virtual tours and whatnot. So this is the advantage to kind of signing on with our platform and being able to speak and communicate with us directly, as opposed to finding a site that you can kind of drop some information in, even like Facebook or something like that. And then of course the built-in user base. We already have like hundreds of people a week downloading the app. In the summertime, we have up to 500 people a week or 1,000 people a week downloading the app. When we do press releases, when we did a press release in Edmonton, we got 10,000 downloads inside of 14 days, right? Because of the media coverage that we got for that. And those people are already in. Those people already have our app. They're checking it out. They see new cities come on board, and they take a look at those. And that's the benefit of having an established user base, as opposed to kind of reinventing a wheel or creating your own. Then you have to start looking for and creating a user base. Whereas this one, you're just jumping into one that's already in. Yeah, so that's the nutshell of that. And one of the next features that we're adding is an interactive then and now camera. So the idea isn't just to kind of create content, put it up there for them to read like a book. We want people to interact with history. We want people to engage with the software and to kind of keep checking back to see what else there is that they can discover and do and play with. And one of those things is the camera feature. Now, what we've done is we've built in an opportunity, and it's about to roll out sometime this year, where people can take their own then and now photographs when they're at the locations. So when they're at the location, there's a filter they apply. They hit the green button, and the old transparent or translucent image comes up of the previous image, and they can line it up themselves, take a picture of themselves or somebody else in with it. And then when they snap the picture button to take the picture, it opens up a camera editor where they can edit the photo just like we do. Of course, it doesn't come out as well as it does with a big SLR camera and a massive raw file for the original photo, but it gives them a digital souvenir. It gives them something to interact with and to be able to take their own photo. And the editing feature will even enable them to take a photo of themselves right next to a historical figure, or put themselves in the location the day the cenotaph was created, the ceremony, or however the case may be, or ribbon ceremonies, or any kind of historical event that we have photos. And these are ways that we're going to work into kind of keep things and create them to be more interactive. Now, I'll talk a little bit about what partnership is and how that works. Partnership, we kind of create on a project basis, where we only kind of charge what it costs to create the content. So there's no maintenance fees, there's none of that. There's no like long-term subscription fees. And essentially we don't hold your content hostage, right? We feel that if we were to charge like $200 or $300 a month, first off, after a couple of years, it would cost far more than it cost to create the content. And we don't want you feeling like we're charging you, like we're holding your content hostage or something like that. We want you to see and feel and think and work on the next project and creating more interesting content and information. And we still provide you with the resources, the analytics as to people and who's taking a look at our app and what the downloads are, and then partner with you to advertise that on social media and whatnot, which we talk about. So this is why we feel that partnership is the best term to use for this, as opposed to like client or customer or something like that. as we partnered with all these communities, and we still continue to work with them to create more content. Even in Aurora, a brand new tour that we just did with Aurora's Fallen, which is honoring their vets that died in the wars. So, you know, all these different kind of content come out, and now that that's created, it's in there in perpetuity for them. So more to partnership, what we mean by it is we all have the same goals in mind. We're in the same boat. What benefits you benefits us, and vice versa. So our goals are aligned, which is to increase public engagement and get people interested in history and develop and shared revenue streams. Right? We all want to create digital engagement. We want to track the results. We want to attract visitors. We want to be used as an educational resource. We want to create public interest in history. We want to bring value to your community, increase your presence on a national stage, and you know, even make a little bit extra money where we can off of print sales and donate buttons and things like that. So this is a little more about why we call it partnership and what partnership means. And oftentimes, as previously mentioned, there's cross-community partnerships. And these cross-community partnerships are just exactly like I say with Sault Ste. Marie. We partnered with the museum. They got the Downtown Association Tourism in the city to pay for it. Same thing with UQLIT. It wasn't their historical society that paid for it. It ended up being Tourism UQLIT that paid for it. And the same thing with in Edmonton with Old Strathcona, it was the city of Edmonton that paid to get that content created. And we're happy to do so. It doesn't matter to us who pays to get the content created. We just want the content created, and then we treat the local museums as our partners and to be a resource to you for engaging with people online and building upon what we already do. So, you know, that's kind of a nutshell explanation of what partnership is. And, you know, further benefits once the content is created, you know, obviously, of course, provide consulting. You can call us up anytime to talk about it. We have synergized marketing. When we're promoting our app, we're promoting you as well. And, you know, when we create the app, we have created a digital toolkit, which we'll send out to you, which has the photos and ideas for social media posts. We can even help you understand how to schedule social media posts and create engagement with people online. And, you know, also to separate yourselves from other communities who may not be doing this, that you are competing with for tourism and interest. And then, of course, analytics we provide in perpetuity as well. We'll send it out quarterly as to see who's viewing content and whatnot, and where they're coming from, and, you know, some of that information, so that we better know who to market to, right? Because this is the purpose of the marketing tool itself. And when it comes to advantages for museums, because it's designed to create interest, our whole thing is that we can create tours when we partner with a museum that can start at the front door. We can start the tour right at the front door of your museum, or we can end the tour at your museum. Oftentimes, a lot of people, when they go to smaller museums, they end up kind of going, okay, well, what can I do now? Well, this gives us an opportunity to give this to them and tell them that they can check this out. They can go out and do these tours. It's user-friendly within the app, and they can download it, and it feeds into your algorithms. It's as good, it's good or better than them signing the digital address book, because then we get access to promote to them. If we wanted to do paid advertising, then we can advertise to all of the people who've downloaded the app. We can advertise to their friends through their social media accounts, because often people are like-minded with their friends. And then that's how we can continue to reach that audience, instead of just guessing and placing an ad on a billboard or something like that. This gives us good targeted advertisement for promoting ourselves online. And yeah, there's opportunity to generate revenue, right? So oftentimes you can apply for a grant to cover us. Most of our content is created through grants. Some of our partners add something into there for themselves if they want to get involved with the process of creating the content, which you can get as involved with as you want. Some partners have us join up right away, and they just say, here's a box of info, here's a bunch of photos, see what you got. Some of them want to get a lot more involved, and they already have dog-eared photos that they want to show us and that they want us to talk about, and we're happy to do that. And there's also the opportunity to sell prints. There's an in-app donation button you can put on there. And you can even do enhanced guided tours that you do for a donation fee during peak seasons if you wish to do that. And the idea is to create an interest in the community and get more people coming to your museum. So this is how you're able to utilize this to kind of create more content or more revenue for your museum. And then, of course, we've experienced some rapid growth in some key regions, especially in like Alberta, for example, where communities nearby are seeing the benefits of being near to a larger city that they can draw from. So when they create content here, then they can advertise, like Red Deer is advertising, and can advertise in Edmonton and in Calgary to draw people in. Same with Fort Macleod, they can advertise to nearby Lethbridge. And being close to these areas and these regions gives us the opportunity to talk about the whole area. And when they get involved and others get involved, we can talk about why these two towns are similar and they're close by, and why do they both exist? What were the differences between them? How did the entire area come to be? And to create that, and with locals and with people in an area, it helps them bring the area into context. All of this area and the city and the region and the county, it becomes a place instead of just kind of a patch of dirt that they drive by, right? To be able to understand. And with audio tours, where we could talk like the highway tours and such, there's just so much that we can talk about, like why Regina is where it is, right? So on the Spot's appeal, why do people download our app? Well, it's a novel and unique interactive experience. There is no other app that does what we do as well as we do it anywhere in the world. We're thus far, I think, the ones that do more then and now photographs than anyone else. We're the only ones with the interactive tool built into the app, and we know this because we built it from the ground up. There are no other apps that do that, and the advantage of building it from the ground up is we can accommodate and adjust and create new opportunities. Another thing is we're millennial owned and operated. I'm the oldest one of us, and I'm only 43. So we understand our mindsets and what, all these millennials that are now the most active travelers in the country and in the world, what they're looking for, what their appeal is, how they want to be told stories, what they want to know. And, and to be able to speak to them directly in their own terms, and to kind of create interest within them. And as I was saying, kind of pass the baton of historical literacy and interest in history. And Gen Z, this is a variable here. The Gen Zers, born up to as late as 2010, are the most connected to technology. They're almost born knowing how to use things, and things that are very intuitive are ways they do things. And kids today are different than when we were kids. We learned things through textbooks, and we had to remember it, and then we'd have to go to the museum or look into it to remember later. These kids aren't like that. These kids are pulling their phones out of their pocket and be like, what happened here? Like what looking up something and looking things right up on their phone. They don't even feel the need to go to a computer to Google it. They'll just Google it on their phones. The amount of usage that's happening on phones and at people's fingertips these days has skyrocketed to the point where it is the new normal. It is abnormal for for these younger people to even use a laptop or a screen. They don't really care about the screen. They would rather, they could do almost everything they can on a laptop, on their phone or their iPad. So being able to appeal to them and to work with them is important. And this is how we're starting. Like teachers in Strathmore are taking their grade 2 kids out on field trips to do walking tours. High schools in Vancouver have assigned students tours and to go out with the first version we had of our Then and Now camera. And, even into university, UVic, where Andrew studied and Andrew and Chris studied, has offered courses on the spot and, putting historical events on the map and focusing on location-based storytelling as a big part of it. So this is how we're appealing to these younger generations and what they're catching on to it. Millennials, as I mentioned, they're huge travelers. They love to travel, and they're cost savvy. They know how to use technology to find a good deal and find great rates on things, which is why our app and our content, if I haven't mentioned it before, is and always will be free to anyone with an internet connection. right? This is critical to us, as we want people to, in other parts of the country and other parts of the world, looking at what kind of content that we have, and then that encourages them to come down and to go for a visit and to kind of travel and see where they can go. If they know, there's even a lot of travel bloggers out there, right, that will come out, they'll see that there's something there, and if a travel blogger, they require their audience to want to do something. So yeah, it's important for them to have an opportunity to do that. And yeah, so easy to use. Here's another key component, is that it's built to be user friendly and for people to be able to to understand, and it's intuitive with this the slider tool that we have and all of these different features. We've built it up intentionally to be user friendly. And we use things like the 3-click rule, which is common in technology, which is where no content should take more than 3 clicks to find and to get access to. So that's important as well. So Em, how are we doing on time here? Is there a question or something you need to mention? How am I
We're
doing?
good. Yeah, we're good.
Okay. All
It's,
right.
yeah, no worries.
All right. Just want to check on that. And yeah, I kind of touched on this as well, but education is, of course, an important component of it, where we're teaching it in schools. And we want teachers and students already using this in all levels of education, from their local community to the capitals, to the content with communities and different communities and ethnic groups, to be able to understand what they're doing. We're working on national content for things such as Internment Canada, where we're doing a thing where we're going to cover all of the insights from the World War I internment that most people don't talk about. When we hear internment, we think about World War II. Oftentimes people don't even remember or know that there were the challenges that happened to Ukrainian Canadians and Canadians during World War II or World War One. So we're creating that content that'll be educated in schools as well. So it's very useful all around. The analytics. This is something that we're in development now. We're kind of working on creating an age, gender, location, the kind of device that they're using, what their engagement is, how much they're looking, how much they're reading. Because this is our tool, we can actually tell what they are. We have different types of people we call skimmers, dippers, and divers. The skimmers are the ones that like scrolling through and looking at the photos and the slider tool, and reading the caption maybe. And then there's the divers who want to read the full essay format, which is on each of the tour locations, where we have about 300 to 500 words. And as we're now just starting to really kind of refine our analytics to capture all the most important data, these are the things that we're looking for, so we can find out how they're engaged and then continue to kind of create more content. If we see that the tour stops are too long, we can spare them out and split them out into 2 different places and really kind of customize it as we continue to go. Because it's not printed material like a book, right? There's lots that we can do with being able to make it more interactive, right? To kind of actually know what users' behavior is, so that we can tell what they're doing and what's most successful. So social media marketing, whenever we partner with someone, we create dozens of social media posts, as I mentioned, for Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and all the photographs that you can use to, kind of take the captions. Most of the time, it works well to take the photos that we do, the caption that we have, and put that in. On things like social media, like Instagram and Twitter, we can't necessarily put in the sliding tool that we have, but we can use a fader that'll fade from one image to the next image, and to kind of make that a striking visual post where people can still flip from one picture to the next, where it's the old and the new, and then they're linked to our site where they can come and take a look at it. So when we build that in, we build our own social media content, and we do it for you as well. And then engagement. Engaging users on social media. This one I put in because I wanted to talk a little bit about, Charlie, get out of here. Sorry.
Ross, in the meantime
Okay,
here, while you
there we
get
go.
logged back in, we did have
Hmm.
a question that came up.
Yeah, please
Is
shoot.
is the app available in languages other than English?
Oh, great question. Yes, we do have translation services available. So, and we started that out last year. I don't know what's going on. And let's see. So yeah, it's available. And the way it looks is there's a map on the corner, there's a flag on the corner to indicate what the language is. So
Awesome,
let me,
thanks.
this is embarrassing.
No worries, it never works when you need it to.
No, fair enough. Okay, so let me come back down to here where I was. I was getting down to the end anyway. Partnership benefits here. So engaging on social media. So this one I just put in here because I wanted to talk a little bit about what happens once we create the content, depending on what your social media strategy is. All right, is this visible? Am I back to normal again?
You're good. Yeah.
Okay, good. Thanks for that. But yeah, engaging people on social media. So what does engagement mean? These young people, here's another interesting thing is that, us, have a different kind of feel when we go to retail. A lot of times we go into a business and we ask, we ask a question, we observe the people that are working there. If they don't pay attention to us or they don't say anything to us, they don't engage with us, we, just assume they're not interested in our business and we walk away. So engagement in social media for these younger generations is important. A lot of times to these kids, as far as they're concerned, sending you a message on Instagram or Facebook about a question they have is the same thing as being there in person physically. So it's more than just a platform to post content on. It's an opportunity to directly engage with your audience and with the people that are there and the people that are sharing, and to thank them for sharing your content and to welcome them to the museum and to reach out to them. So I just kind of wanted to briefly mention that a lot of the part of the purpose of this is to create that interest, and if that interest is coming with you online, it's important to engage with them where you are. And yeah, how we can help. Partnering with us allows you to reach a rapidly growing audience. We have 50,000 users at least already. We have coverage in 6 countries, 50 partner cities, and we have multiple different levels of advertising for hotels and businesses, for people coming back and forth. And we offer to create promotional materials, so rack cards, brochures, posters, table tents, and postcards even, and prints that you can sell. Allows you to kind of give your guests and your visitors brochures and things that they can look for to kind of directly reach out to them in visitor centers or whatever the case may be, to interact with them. And then again, now virtual tours. Yes, okay, this is a big part of what we're doing. Recently, a couple weeks ago, we did a tour thing about virtual tours. What are virtual tours? What's the difference between a virtual tour, augmented tour, virtual reality, all of these different kind of opportunities? What's the difference with them? So the last presentation that we did, the last webinar we did, was what is the difference about them and how you can use these to your advantage. The next one we have is coming up next week, and we can make sure that we get the link out to you before then. And this is how to actually create a virtual tour of your museum, literally with nothing more than what you already have. It's free. It's just, if you know how to do it, you can use your phone to snap all of the photos and to be able to create a working tour that works within your museum. And we can create virtual tours outside into the community as well. Coming up with Fort McLeod, we're going to do one virtual tour along the river, because there aren't a lot of photographs that were there that we could capture. So we have virtual tour spots that work exactly like Google Earth, and exactly like, in fact, we're even using the same software, I think, for the virtual tours, where you can kind of you walk yourself there and take a 360 look all the way around and create sort of an immersive experience online through the virtual tours. So this is different than our standard then and now photograph tours, but this enables us to tell more stories, tell stories that aren't about necessarily built history, and to interact with them. And these also encourage people when they're looking to come out and take a look at content. And we can do anything. We can do it on the community. We can do it on military history. We can do it on natural history, which is something that we're really keen to get into, and biographies and indigenous history, labor history. There's really so much that we can do. We can even do local tours, like in Sault Ste. Marie, where we did a tour about murals and that they had placed all around the city, because they put a considerable amount of effort into that. And it was cool with us because they did it on some old buildings where we could have the mural as a very stark contrast to the black and white, which was already there. And that's just creates just such a visual kind of idea, visual immersive experience that just kind of really grabs onto people. So this virtual tours is going to help us take that even to the next level, where people can virtually walk around right where they're looking and see where all of that is. So I guess this was kind of mainly an overview of all of kind of what we're at and where we're going. There's a lot of the virtual tours and that were things that we're doing. I wanted to kind of give us enough time to ask questions and talk to you guys about some of the things that we had, and also make sure to kind of thank you as well for participating and joining in.
Awesome. Thanks, Ross.
Yeah, thank you.
So I'll just take a moment here and open it up if anybody has any questions for you.
Oh, wow, that's
okay.
Good.
Oh, here we go. Is there a ballpark cost for a project?
Yeah, that's a great question. I should have covered that. Okay, so the way that it works, and I can tell you more if you wish later. The way we have a starter package, which will cover 50 spots. So 50 spots, 35 of those are locations that we can scatter around the city, and 15 of those are the tourist spots that we expand on. The entry point is $7,500 for that, and that's the one-time fee. But when we come out, we often take a lot more than that. We take 250 photos if we can of the area, so that we have it, so that we can continue to build upon it from there. So that's why we call it the starter package. Sometimes, depending on the grants and funding, some people are only able to start with the starter package, and then we get in with that, and then we can build on it from there. But entry level, ballpark, $7,500 for that. However, we also do have the free museum listing, which we're aiming to list every museum in the country. And I didn't have a slide for that. I thought I did. Well, yeah, so in addition to what we're doing as we're expanding, we have our locations, but we want every museum in the country to advertise, which is why we're giving free advertising to all the museums in the country. So I'll make sure that you guys are emailed out the form for that to fill out as well, so that people, for example, if someone's in your nearby city and, they download the app, they look nearby, they'll see the museums that are close by to them when they tap on the nearby. Since there wouldn't be any locations if we haven't created content there, the first location available for them to see would be a museum, and that's the idea, is to get people to the museum. So I'll put them there. So thanks for and there's no cost for that.
Couple more questions that have come in here.
Yeah.
Do you need Wi-Fi or high-speed internet?
Ooh, good question. Okay, so yes, it is. As it stands, our service is free and available to anyone with an internet connection. But very shortly, probably before any of the content that we would partner up to create would be done, there's downloadable map packs available for people. So if they're in a place where there's poor coverage or not much cell service, they can use the download code, right, for the downloadable map pack, and then the content's downloaded on their phone, and then they don't need an internet connection to use it anymore. But without needing to download code or to use the downloadable map pack, they can access it from anywhere.
Okay,
great. So that's a good question.
Another question. Couple more. There's been actually quite a few here, so we'll just go through them.
Cool. Yeah, I love it.
Yeah. So a question from Mia. We are starting a website which we have funding for. How would your app complement a website?
Oh, yeah. There's so much we could do. Okay, so the content that we create, like if you look on our website, we can help you kind of take and repurpose a lot of that. So we can take the locations, we can put locations in your site. We can take and even create like a map If there's a map feature that you're getting built in, we can give you the locations that you can put in that people can open up and discover, and they can look at it that way. And we can link to our site. Whenever you're building a site, also, it's good to link to other sites that are also relevant. So you linking to us and us linking to you is good for you, because we add legitimacy to each other, and then cross traffic. And search engines really like that sort of thing. So when your site is communicating with ours and they know that there's relationships, it's key, because there's a ton of websites out there. There's probably more websites that are dead and no one's active on them than there are ones where people are active. So having your site be interactive and working with us to currently mirror content is something that search engines like to see. So yeah, there's lots that we can do. And this is part of the consulting that we talk about, where it's built in. We can put in and help you kind of create the donate buttons for people to be able to donate money directly through your website and through our app, even if they're viewing content that's there. There's a tremendous amount that we can do online, and we're happy to do that.
Awesome. Question from Anne. Can the starter package be shared among several small towns that may not have 50 spots to start?
Yeah, we did that actually in Lacombe. Lacombe in Alberta, they got a grant, and they only got for a starter package. And what they did is they split that up. The tour is in Lacombe, and they split like for 5 for something locations for each of the other communities, and then they enabled the other communities to pay another $500 or $1,000 or whatever they come up with out of their budget for up to 5 more spots or something like that. So in the end, we got like little smaller communities like Alex and Black Falls. You can see them in our app now. If you go and look, you can see that there's no tour there, but you can see that there are spots and there are locations. So we can take and we can build upon that. So, this is a good part of the regional context. Like, and it was the regional district of Lacombe, the tourism, that paid for it, actually. It wasn't even a museum that approached us. They did it for their museum. So that gives you an idea of how keen they are to work together with you. Right. In fact, I've spoken with someone at Tourism Saskatchewan now about, and starting to talk about utilizing this as a tourism tool out there as well.
Comment from Cal in Saskatoon. And I was thinking of this while you were speaking about the internment project, Ross, that the only Saskatchewan World War I internment site is actually located at the Saskatchewan Railway Museum.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, that's one out of many examples, but yeah, fair enough.
Yeah. Question from Ali. How are you acquiring people to use the app, and is there a large return user base? I know people tend to use a total of 9 apps, and museum apps have had a really, really tough time generating generating engagement. For example, Magic Tape Ball.
Okay. Yeah. You know what? You're right. A lot of apps have really struggled to maintain, and especially the history apps. Since we came, it was ominous and scary for us as we were building our app, seeing so many of them start and fall because of reasons that we discovered, such as a regional approach. There was a great app in Toronto called Toronto in Time that was started, but it fell apart because they didn't have the budget to maintain it. Because building a website and building an app is different from a website. With an app, you have to adhere to, constant changing terms of agreement and terms of service. There isn't anything like that for a website. You can just buy the domain, throw it up, and put it on there. So a lot of museums, once they develop or they build an app, then they find themselves in the app business, and then they're competing with people like us. And the challenge with that is how to kind of, you don't want to be an app developer. This is why we also took all of that work off of our partners to do that. And how we keep engaging with new users is new users coming through school and new content. So as these kids are growing up, then they're starting to look at other cities. So they're constantly going back to the app. And what that does is that trains them to see our app as a resource for history information and for tourism. And we're very active on our social media posts. This year, we're going to start working a lot more on building up our user base of users all the way across the country. And the then and now photographs are a huge part of that, because they really like the then and now photograph. Then they come out when they see one that's off on the river. We're going to be doing some content in the Maritimes. So there's going to be tall ships and builds out into the ocean and off the coastline. So there's tons that we can do, and those photos keep them engaged. A lot of our users enjoy our content and enjoy seeing the next and more and exploring it. So they're looking for new content as it comes out. And that has been what has made us successful. I can also, if you wish, I can send a comparative analysis about different types of apps and how we're effective, being ones that are government created, being like Parks Canada, one that didn't work out very well despite the amount of content that they have that they can talk about, and why they weren't succeeding, because they weren't doing things like engaging with their audience. As I was talking about before, people would send a message and that wouldn't go to anybody. There would be no response. So, engaging our audience, knowing who our audience is how we've been successful so far.
Okay, thank you. A couple more questions here.
Yeah.
Who are your partners? Municipalities or heritage organizations or local business groups?
Yeah. Okay. So there's different ones. Our partners are typically one of 5 categories. There are either museums or historical societies. There are BIAs or Chamber of Commerce. They're the city itself or tourism. And well, BIAs or Chamber of Commerce, similar. They're oftentimes the ones that do it, and they all have different reasons, but we ultimately all for the same purpose. So a BIA's reason is because they want to encourage increased foot traffic. Tourism is they want to attract people from another city or another place. And the city, because they just kind of want to talk about their city. They want their citizens to be more engaged with the city and understand where they're living. A lot of small towns have experienced a fair amount of growth the last few years, with people moving from larger cities to smaller towns throughout the country. And when people move to these towns, they have no context as to what's there or why they're there. So having this app makes them be a little bit more than, a box on a patch of dirt that they live on, right?
Okay, another question, or a question from Amber.
Yeah.
I couldn't locate Regina on the app. Is it on there? I also saw only North American and European cities on the app. Is that right?
Sorry, there was someone who asked a question before me. There was a question from Kathy Allen.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I missed that.
Sorry.
Thank you. Nope, thanks for pointing that out. What is the timeline for completing a starter package type project?
Oh, that's kind of like asking how long is a piece of string. It can be as long as we need it to be. So our record is 28 days. We created a content with the photos, the story, the tour, everything written, created, done, and up and in the app. 28 days from the day the agreement was signed and the payment was made. Now, that is a land speed record. I think we might be able to break that someday, but that gives you an idea. It can be anywhere. Like if you really need it done and really need it done by a certain date and the funding was a challenge, we'll do our best to find a way to make it work. But generally speaking, we can pretty much promise from a hard launch to a soft launch anywhere from 2 to 3 months turnaround time. And we're able to kind of turn up the fire if we need to, because we have extra writers that we can put onto the subject now. So yeah, good question. Thanks, Kathy.
Great, thanks. Now we'll get to Amber's question. And that was the one about Regina not being on the app, and also only North American, European cities on the app. Is that correct?
Yeah. Okay. So there is no Regina, regrettably. We were trying to get that content created, but we weren't able to secure funding with a partner out there. I've had some conversations with people out there, but it just kind of hasn't come to fruition yet. So, part of the reason for this here was to begin this conversation. It doesn't matter to us which heritage society. We don't need everybody to be on board, just one of them that's willing and interested to create content that you're the focal point of in your neighborhood or region. However, Regina is also important to us because it's a capital city. So we're wanting to go there. I was telling Em that we were trying to go there last fall, but I was working Andrew too hard. He just couldn't make it. We wanted, because it's an important city to cover that we wanted to have, but we weren't able to make it on our road trip. And kind of fortunately / unfortunately, we have now passed the point of kind of creating tours for free on our own time, like we did in Vancouver. And we created a tour for Saskatoon, and we did one for Toronto, and we did our own for Montreal. But now that we have so many partners and communities kind of coming on board, we have to prioritize the ones that are paying for us. So Regina just sort of hit hit the back so far. But yeah, I definitely want to talk to you about creating the content. There's grants. I think there's $90 million out from the COVID relief and stimulus that is creating grants that we can capitalize on and we can get into. And I recently brought Jocelyn on board, who, funny enough, sadly, COVID ate her job position at the museum she was with in Castlegar, BC. So she signed with us to create content in Castlegar. And then, before the project was over, they had to let her go. So I scooped her up because she is great at finding funding and, being able to make that work. So literally right now, she's working on looking into all these different kind of grants and funding opportunities from the stimulus. So, we can probably work with you and get it done for free from your
Yes.
perspective anyway.
So that leads directly into the next question, which was,
Cool.
You mentioned grants available to fund these starter packages. Where do we find these grants?
Through Jocelyn. Well, we there's some that coming through like Travel Alberta. There's some like that do. So they're getting money and they're getting funding that they then distribute. So what we're trying to do now is just kind of find out where all this money is going, who's got their hands in the purse strings, and who is doling it out to different organizations. So some cities are getting extra funding for, their BIAs. Their BIAs may be getting some extra emergency funding and all that. There's different private foundations all over the place. Like there's thousands of them across the country that are untapped, right? The amount of foundations and funding that we know about is only maybe 10% of what's actually out there. So there's different tools that we're looking to reach into to be able to find them. We're going to use the resource guide to find every foundation with a SIC code in every region, and then start to send them letters individually. So, there's just tons of funding out there, and it's super cool. I can't wait to see, what Jocelyn was able to come up with all these funding opportunities, because right now I have more cities that are looking for funding and sourcing funding than we already have in our app in North America, Europe, or otherwise. And we're just continuing to grow. We have no content in the States because the United States is in such a bad place right now that we don't, that it's just difficult. The travel and the accommodations and just kind of dealing with that and the political climate down there. We just kind of held off on expanding into the United States, and we're going to expand into the Europe and overseas later this year as well, and then just kind of continue from there.
Just to kind of build upon the grant question. So say, for example, there's someone out there listening right now, or a group of people, and they're interested in doing something. Would they be able to, say, get in contact with you, and does you and your team help them kind of look for those types of opportunities to be able to fund it? Or is that something that they'd need to do on their own?
Good question. And you know what? The funny thing is, the partnership kind of begins before the partnership officially begins. So if that means you need source funding and you're looking for that, we can easily help with that. We can help with the information that you need to fill out an application. The only thing we don't do is fill out the application. So if there's questions on the grant application, then we can kind of give a suggestion as to what they are and kind of consult with the application process and kind of go through that. That's what Jocelyn is here for, and what we're doing and what we've done before. I can share with you previous grants that have been applied for that have succeeded, so that you can see what terminology and vernacular has been used. And I have no problem showing you grants that happened in BC, like no big difficulty there, and it's all public information, I think, anyways. So we're able to help you either source it or complete the application if you wish.
Okay, thanks. One more question that's popped up here. Do your analytics show who uses the app more? Is it tourists or locals, or does it depend on the location? While dealing with COVID-19 for the next year, it seems engaging locals might be the biggest consumer of this kind of info.
Yeah, and that's a good question. And the analytics is built to show both. It depends. In Vancouver, we get a lot of tourists, because Vancouver is full of tourists. So there's a lot of that. But there's different ways. It's tricky to discern exactly where somebody's from on the app. So there's different ways that we can do that. We can do that by saying, where did they download the app originally? Where were they when they downloaded it? And then if they log in through Facebook, then we have access to all kinds of information. What's their hometown, right? And we can cross-reference it to that. So if they download the app in Vancouver, but they live in Calgary or Regina, then that's how we can know, oh, they downloaded it when they're here. And then they see where they are at, where they're over there. And we can do, with analytics are, the way my limited understanding of the analytics is it's a way of asking the software a question. How many people downloaded this app in this city? How many people downloaded this app and view content that's outside of their city? So if you're in Regina and you're looking at Toronto content, we want to know that, as opposed to if you're just looking at content in Toronto or in Regina. So as we continue to learn more, quite frankly, about the analytics, we can get more granular in terms of what and who we're looking to attract. Because what we're looking for is we're looking to identify patterns. We're looking to identify patterns of people in one city or one area so that we can then market to those people in those patterns. So another thing that we're going to be doing after the virtual tours is we're going to be talking about Google ad spend. I don't know if many of you know about this, but Google ad spend has $10,000 a month they give to nonprofits to advertise. And what that means is then you can take that analysis of where your users are coming from and where people are looking at it, and then view and advertise to them directly. This is what I was saying about advertising to someone's friends, or search terms if someone's searching for tourism Regina or what to do in Regina. We can see how many people are searching for that term and then put your ad or put our ad or mutual ad right up at the top to show them that. So there's just a tremendous amount of potential with the analytics that, quite frankly, we're just starting to tap into.
Right.
Yeah, it's fun to nerd out on, but it kind of intimidating at the same time, because it's like, there's so much information. It's like, it's like drinking from a fire hose. We can tell their name, their age, their gender, their locations, their friends, their email address, and we can market to them directly. Like, it turned out to be a lot more versatile than we had anticipated, and it's super exciting to be able to get into that.
That's really interesting, especially on the analytics side of things, because I'm always, as someone who does the communications and social media marketing for the Museums Association, I'm always surprised at how effective even the limited amount of analytics and data we can get back through our Facebook page is, and so it's kind of interesting to hear kind of how that can be expanded upon, through an app or through your app, it's interesting and scary. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, big time. And it's so weird too. Like, we learn some things. Like, here we are, we're all kind of, young and not dumb, but, young and full of enthusiasm, and, and we have our ideas of how we think things will work. Like, everyone has ideas on how you think things will work. But what we discovered was that we thought we came out of the gate thinking, all right, we're going to appeal to all these millennials. We'll get all these millennials traveling using our app. We'll get these kids learning about it in schools. And we didn't really think about older people very much. But what we discovered is that we actually have a fairly large audience that's Gen X or older. And we totally weren't expecting that. And what we discovered after talking to some of these people, like our partners, they were saying that what their users, their older people are appreciating about it is the nostalgia of it. And that totally didn't occur to us. So now we realize that there's, in addition to the younger audience, which we're focusing on, we can really also create some ads that kind of tinge on the nostalgia of things to appeal to them. And that's something that we hadn't occurred to. So the analytics kind of reveal that information. So yeah, it is weird and intimidating at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think just we're coming up on time here. It's just shortly after 11. So I just want to say thanks again, Ross, for presenting. I think, it's definitely a lot of information, but I encourage you to, if you're interested, download the app, have a look and see if you think it's something you might be interested in. And I know Ross would be happy to speak to anyone who might have any questions. And I'll link to their email address when I post the recording on our website. And thanks for all your great questions too, and thanks for joining us. It was great to connect with everyone again. So
yeah, I'm pleased with the question and answer the period. That was really nice to be able to kind of interact with you guys and answer some of the questions. And it also helps me decide what to put in and talk about on presentations, as this is the first presentation I've done for Saskatchewan, so I wasn't sure what to talk about. So, thank you for telling me more about what you're interested in through the questions that you asked, and I look forward to follow-up conversations with those of you who are interested in picking up where we left off.
Awesome. Yeah, so just before we sign off here, just a quick reminder, the next community chat is going to be January 20th, and we're going to be chatting with Karen Stuber from the Saskatchewan Archaeological Society about how archaeology can tell a story. So have a great rest of your week, everyone, and we will see you in a couple of weeks.
All right, bye now.
Bye.